Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are tackling a genuinely fascinating system that is designed to fundamentally repair exactly how policy decisions are made using data. Look, if you've ever stared at a new law or some grand public policy and thought to yourself, wait, does the data actually support this at all? Then you are absolutely going to love what we're covering today. We're exploring something called the Policy Identification Observatory.
So let's kick things off with a massive question, one that honestly haunts a lot of policy analysts. Why do our seemingly data-driven debates so often fail before the estimation phase even starts? I mean, we constantly hear that policies are evidence-based, right? But what actually happens when the evidence itself is being practically forced to tell a story it doesn't really support?
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the flaw in policy data, then enter the observatory, break down the anatomy of an audit, look at the AI agent advantage, and finally, cover the outputs that drive decisions. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The flaw in policy data. Okay, let's start by exposing a really fundamental flaw in how evidence is currently used out there. The thing is, just throwing more data and massive computing power at a problem, it doesn't automatically fix deeply ingrained analytical defects. For instance, analysts will constantly confuse a stock, like the total number of houses that exist, with a flow, like the rate of new houses being built. It's literally like confusing the water already sitting in your bathtub with the water actively pouring out of the faucet. Another huge, dangerous defect is omitting plausible rival explanations. You know, seeing a trend and just immediately guessing the cause, while completely ignoring three other things that could have created the exact same pattern.
And this really highlights the contrast perfectly. The current method insists on squeezing a single, incredibly precise number, a point estimate, out of really noisy data. But we have to stop forcing exact answers from ambiguous data. The observatory method steps in and says, wait a second, the data can't actually isolate just one cause here. So instead of guessing, it embraces a bounded set of possibilities, telling us what is actually defensible under all that uncertainty.
Which brings us to a massive realization. If a claim cannot be strictly identified from the evidence, we cannot let it masquerade as a proven historical truth. When multiple different mechanisms could reproduce the exact same records, the honest output is a range of possibilities, not a single magic number. Recycling these unidentified claims as settled facts, well, that's exactly how we end up with broken policies.
Moving on to Section 2. Enter the observatory.
So what is the systemic solution to all this? It's the Policy Identification Observatory. Now, to be clear, this is not some AI oracle that just magically spits out answers. It is an unyielding gauntlet that relentlessly stress tests claims. Think of it as an explicit research protocol. It takes a specific policy claim and an evidence boundary, and it rigorously figures out what the data directly establishes, what relies heavily on assumptions, and what, frankly, just remains totally unknown. Actually, let me give you an incredibly cool real-world example from the source material. In its founding case, which looked at investor pressure in England, the project deliberately stopped without a unique historical attribution. Why? Because multiple mechanisms could have generated the exact same observed pattern. They were looking at investor pressure and changes in housing tenure, but before fitting their model, the AI agents asked, hey, can these observations distinguish investor pressure from changes in credit conditions, or housing supply, or even tax changes? And the answer was no. So they just stopped. They explicitly refused to produce a guessed point estimate. That was their major breakthrough moment.
Section 3. Anatomy of an audit.
So how does this actually build a durable, bounded reality? It happens through a really rigorous audit. The observatory relies on a 9-stage journey that's basically grouped into 3 core phases. First up, evidence work. They freeze the exact claim and audit the measurements. Then comes inference, where they construct rival mechanisms to see if the target effect can actually be isolated. Finally, and this is the critical part, adversarial release. Absolutely nothing gets released without an adversarial pass. A fresh agent comes in and actively tries to break the result. If it survives that, you know for sure you have something genuinely robust. That brings us to Section 4, the AI agent advantage. Now, you might be wondering exactly how artificial intelligence fits into this pipeline. We are definitely not talking about chatbots writing essays here. We are talking about persistent entities that never forget and actively try to break bad assumptions. Being agent native means the research process itself is a durable state. The AI doesn't just answer a quick prompt and forget the whole context. It maintains the entire case record, the claims, the failed approaches, the unresolved questions, all over time. Because they keep the entire process machine-readable, the system is literally building an institutional memory that learns from every single dead end and omitted mechanism.
But the real magic here is the adversarial approach. The agent that builds the analysis is not the one that certifies it. A totally fresh review agent steps in, reconstructs the steps, and actively searches for ways to make the result fail. It's like having a built-in red team that never sleeps.
And it creates this perfect division of labor. The agents automate the exact replay and the counter-model search. They do the heavy lifting of formalizing the math, searching for rival models, and running sensitivity analyses. But human stewards retain absolute authority over values, rights, and legal responsibilities. The AI cannot decide whose interests count or automatically publish some contentious claim. Policy legitimacy always remains human.
Finally, Section 5. Outputs that drive decisions.
Let's look at what actually comes out of this thing, because a successful case doesn't have to produce a positive, exact answer to be incredibly valuable. A completed audit might end by proving that the data simply cannot identify a single cause, or it might just give us a bounded range of possibilities. It might even tell policymakers the exact minimum amount of new data they need to actually solve the problem. The point is, it replaces false certainty with exact, actionable boundaries.
I absolutely love this concept, explicitly declaring a rigorous failure, which they call a stop receipt. It stops an unsupported claim before it can acquire this dangerous aura of false precision. If a policy claim lacks the data to be proven, the observatory issues a stop receipt. This explicitly documents the failure, which is brilliant because it prevents the next set of researchers from wandering down that exact same blind alley.
And here's the really crucial takeaway. Even when the evidence leaves us with several possible models, the agents can map out which options are guaranteed to fail and which are robust across all surviving scenarios. Just because we don't know the exact mechanism doesn't mean we're paralyzed. The system provides a robust decision map showing policymakers low-regret options. It allows us to act wisely even when the data isn't perfectly clear.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought about the foundation of the rules that govern our society. If we took every current policy debate and ran it through this unyielding gauntlet, how many would end in a structured stop receipt? By demanding that we embrace uncertainty instead of just ignoring it, the Policy Identification Observatory isn't just auditing data, it's completely rewriting how we construct a defensible reality. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the evidence.